Okay, so first of all, thank you very much, everyone, to joining today, uh, primarily on this Saturday afternoon, morning, or evening, depending on your time zone or local time zone, I must say. So today's topic, we will first focus on the MCP, what that means, the MCP, how it's going to transform in the context of Dynamic 365 ERP. So today's session we have divided into two segments. The first segment would be a thought process in terms of what is MCP and how it is working with the other ERP stacks and how it is going to focus in the context of Dynamics 365. We will also try to touch base some of the new terminology or the nomenclature that has been shipped with this MCP and how we as a technical person or as well as a consultant can try to focus and learn from as and when it is required for your implementation or maybe a customer engagement side of the story. So before I start the discussion, I would like to just quickly touch base how are we doing in today's world of community driven. So we have an established YouTube channel where we have close to 1.73K subscribers. Please feel free to subscribe and please feel free to learn any specific topic that you want to understand the core aspect. If you have any specific topic that you strongly believe that you want to learn, please do send your request to us. We are available on Microsoft Dynamics community portal as well as a India Dynamics 365, a very specific location from Mumbai. And then we also have a presence, a dedicated page on LinkedIn where we have close to 2,000 followers. And that is the place where we try to publish our new events. And that is where we try to, publish the new activity that we perform. Then we'll move on to quickly a new slide where in this slide, so we have a three core members, which we try to organize the events and allow others who wants to, have that opportunity to learn something from all of us. So myself is 𝗱𝗲𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, and I lead the customer success architect team with TCS. I'm also Microsoft MVP in the business application, predominantly AI ERP space. And I'm also a fast track recognized architect since last close to 4 years, where I typically focus more on the architecture aspects of ERP implementation, predominantly focusing on finance and operation app. Then today here, 𝗱𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, and 𝗱𝗃𝗃, both of my colleagues, they are joining. They're also one of the group leader of this Mumbai India Dynamic 365 community, where 𝗱𝗃𝗃 comes with his tons of experience right from Accepta 3.0. Currently, he has been associated with one of the organization in US, where he focusing on the solution architecting area, and he also Microsoft MVP for last close to 5 years, and he's also been awarded by Microsoft as a fast track recognized architect for close to last 3 years. Then I have my another colleague 𝗱𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. So 𝗱𝗃𝗃 also worked with TCS, and he's fully focused on the new concepts that we always get to learn from Microsoft and community, predominantly on the generative AI. So he's more focused on learning the new things, exploring the new area of generative applications, and he also helps customer in terms of carving out the story for the new applications. And if a customer wants to, align that thought process with the generative AI applications. We'll move on to next slide. So this is our tradition where we typically try to, run through our the standard announcement or maybe some sort of housekeeping activities where we express your viewpoints and the questions very specific to the related topics. And if you have any specific point to be highlighted, please feel free to use the chat window of this Teams chat, as well as by default, if someone joins, they will be on a muted, but our organizers and the volunteers, they will try to unmute you if you want to speak or if you want to, say something high or any sort of topic to be asked. You can raise your hand if you want to, unmute yourself, you want to say something. As I mentioned earlier, you can also use a MS Teams chat if you want to share any thought process, any questions. If you have any specific topic which you believe that you wanted to align for our future topic, please feel free to put it in the chat window, because every day we are learning a new things as have been shipped by Microsoft. There are new things are happening across all the areas, not only just the generative AI applications, but also the other areas. So we would like you to hear from you if you need any specific topic to be learned. Although there will be a time permit of 60 minutes to 90 minutes, but if there is a long topic to be covered, we can certainly get into a discussion where we will, divide those sessions in a different areas and different days. In terms of the agenda today, as I mentioned beginning of this call, we will start with what is MCP, that is Model Context Protocol, and then we will go into more detail that how MCP servers. First of all, we'll understand what that MCP servers is all about, because those who are coming from a technical background, irrespective of any technology, probably they will have any thought process. Definitely, they will have some thought process. Server means some machines running in the on-premises world or maybe running the cloud. So we will see how that MCP, get into more discussion and what that MCP server is all about. Then we will deep dive into hands-on demo and we will see how we can build our own MCP servers and how we can leverage the MCP servers that Microsoft has built for this AI ERP, which is Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations app. And then towards the end, we will open for a discussion and any specific Q&A. Then we will get into more that discussion. Before we get into the more discussion in terms of what is exactly MCP, probably you might have seen, right? And often you probably would have seen that you are using a mobile phone, your mobile phone, or maybe any laptop. Probably you would have also noticed that had it been a case that you have some documents and you want some your appointments to be read automatically, but in today's world it is highly impossible because your any a large language model cannot talk to your any local specific data, right? So that is where this MCP server or MCP as a concept comes into picture. So as it stands as a MCP, Model Context Protocol. So we'll just go one by one and we'll understand the nitty-gritty and we will also understand the purpose behind of these three core aspects of MCP. So I would like to start with a protocol. Probably you would have noticed this is very familiar term since we started our career, whether it's technical folks or whether it's a consultant. So in terms, when we think about, the protocol, always something comes in our mind that protocol means something that, we are putting something and we are just trying to following some sort of rules, right? So think about a scenario that you are trying to browse some website and we try to often use HTTPS as a secure protocol. And when you hit the URL, the communication goes to that specific server of that website where that website is hosting and it returns the results back to us, right? So it is set of rules for the correct communication, right? That is nothing but a protocol. But when it comes to the model, again, the model probably something in coming in mind. Model means it's a language model. So you're absolutely right. So model is nothing but any sort of AI model. Those are out there. For an example, if you look at the OpenAI, they have GPT. Then from Google, we have a Gemini model and we have a cloud. That is where this concept comes into picture of model, where the large language models, which they are predominantly focused on language-based retrieval sort of augmentation. That is where these MCP servers leverage the model as a concept. We will see in action, but I just wanted to give you a brief idea about what does mean that the model. In terms of the context, which nothing but the subject. So anything and everything that you pass that information in often in today's world, when we use a chat GPT or maybe Copilot, we try to pass the information as a subject, right? So for an example, you receive the email from someone. So you look at the subject and that subject indicates what that write-up of that email is all about, right? So similarly, here the context is nothing but the input, right? What sort of background information that you are passing on to this context as a context to the MCP servers. But often we are seeing this concept of MCP was not there in last 1 year or so because it just started back in November 2025. So who has developed it, right? So the company called Anthropic, who actually built the cloud, as the model. So they are the one, they have invented this sort of concept of MCP, which actually, try to help to build the data or connect the AI models, irrespective of any AI model, to try to read your local data. For an example, you have a calendar invites, or for an example, you have a local information that is stored, right, on your locally. And since it was first introduced in November 2024, and there has been lot many adopted by lot many big players such as Microsoft, Google, and so on and so forth, right? So if you just try to visualize what that means, that MCP, irrespective of model context protocol as a definition, it is nothing but your USD port for your AI application. So think about a scenario: you are using your laptop and you want to read something from your hard disk back in days of maybe 2020, 2000 and 2005. Nowadays, often we use a Google, maybe any cloud services from Google or maybe OneDrive from Microsoft, right? So you can think about MCP is like your USB-C port where you try to connect to your AI applications. And fundamentally, the AI applications and the large language model, their main job is to produce the next information based on the input that you provide, right? So whether it's a GPT, any model, GPT-4 or GPT-5, you just pass the information and they are very good in producing the information in a step-by-step manner, right? It's not like that any large language model is reading a local data without taking any permission from users. So I'll just quickly move on to next slide. So I just try to depict the view in a pictorial way. So you can read this slide from your left to right, where on the left hand side, there are a bunch of local information that I do have on my local machine, such as I do have my emails, I do have my local databases, I do have my calendars, and I do have my couple of entries that I have recorded in Notepad, right? And MCP servers is like acting as a bridge between my large language model. So you can see on the right hand side, I do have a cloud, I do have a DeepSeek, I do have a Gemini, and I do have the GPT models from OpenAI services, right? And kind of a MCP server is acting like a bridge where I do have the information that I myself has created as part of the MCP servers, and trying to passing the context of that information to the large language model, right? Often when we started learning what does mean by the large language model, I'm pretty sure that you guys also learn a lot in the past. What that mean by large language model, when you pass any queries to the chat GPT as an application, behind the scenes, it takes the information in a tokenized format and pass that information to language, that large language model, and then they try to predict is a next step, right? As a next word, as a next keyword from that input that we pass on. Similarly, here, when we build the MCP servers, so who builds the MCP server, right? So often we have seen that, and often we have also read somewhere in the newspaper and in the social media that being a AI developer is the right opportunity for you to learn. But for a normal programmer, it is going to be difficult because your code is to be written by whether it's a GitHub Copilot or any other programming languages tool, which actually based out of any large language model. But in the context of MCP server, no, programmer are the only one or developer are the only one who are going to build the MCP server. So they are the one who is having a understanding, and that is where the opportunity lies for a developer to learn something on MCP servers, whether you are using a Python or whether using a TypeScript. Everything will covered as we go along. Sukrut has bunch of information to be shared with you, how he has learned that information with the help of TypeScript and Python, not only just sticking to just the X++ language, but the idea is to highlight to you that whether it's a MCP server that you're building something from scratch, or you are leveraging the MCP servers that Microsoft has built for ERP, right? Everything is under the hood, is more structured and standardized model concept that we're trying to pass on to the large language model. In terms of the MCP architecture, again in the context of Finance and Operation App ERP, you can see here we have three core concepts. One is the host and the client as well as the server. So as it depicts in the diagram, that whenever any clients act upon it, we passing a context as we learn as part of the MCP acronym, and then when you pass the context, the request goes to a MCP server. MCP server has the tool experience, and that tool gets executed, which actually results into the information into the whether it's a ERP or whether it's any local data sources. I will not spend too much time on this architecture diagram to be explained because I want to cover a couple of other slides before I hand over to my colleague Sukrut here. But what I'm trying to highlight to you that Sukrut will spend a good amount of time on this slide so that if anyone wants to learn something and anyone wants to prepare similar kind of approach for their customer, they probably will get a more understanding about this MCP architecture. In terms of the understanding of in the world of Dynamics 365 ERP for MCP world, as you can see here, currently as we speak, everything is in private preview. Okay, so if you're thinking about that, can I use it in a production environment? The answer is probably no at this stage. But if you just think about, I just prepared a simple table for everyone so that you can understand. So there are three columns that I try to highlight here. It starts with the tool name, the description and type. Probably you would have noticed that often since we start a conversation, I myself use the tool as an acronym multiple times. So I just wanted to, demystify more on that, what that mean by tool is all about. So basically, if you just try to understand the acronym as tool, probably you would notice that tool might be is kind of an application or kind of a software which can connect to my MCP servers. But to be honest with you, it is not like the case in the context of MCP server. The terminology that is being used here in, in the context of MCP server, why tool? Because each and every methods that we typically used to use, right? You can see one of the method that is being used as a first method as a find approved vendor. Let me just quickly highlight this. This find approved vendors. And those who are coming from a background of X++ programming language probably would have seen at a table level, we used to always have these find methods, right? And this find method used to have some sort of logic, which is to bring the data from a different tables by pushing having a multiple joins and all. Similar concept applies here in the context of MCP server as well, where that same function can be considered, but that it is not being considered as or called as a function, it is called as a tool. So that is where the opportunity comes with the developer. In today's world, in the context of FNO or in the context of Dynamics 365 ERP, these are the list of tools that has been shipped by Microsoft as we speak. Again, there is no extensibility that has been declared by Microsoft or announced by Microsoft as we speak. But in tomorrow's world, probably we as a partner or we as a community members will get an opportunity to extend the MCP servers that Microsoft has built for this ERP, and we can add our own tools, which is nothing but a function. If I put it in this way, in a simple layman language, in the context of developer or functional consultant, so you can build. So I'll just pick up the first one. So if you look at the first one, which I highlighted now, which is a find approved vendors, which nothing but trying to find the vendors that are approved, to supply the specific items, right? And the request can include the item numbers and the vendors account specific numbers as a filter, so on and so forth, right? This is very similar to the methods that we typically wrote in the in the X++ language for whether it's a standard method, whether it's a custom methods. But in the context of MCP server, those have been considered as a tools. Okay, and also it is mentioned as a type, whether it's a retrieve or whether it's a search. Then we'll quickly move on to the next slide, because by now probably we understand what that mean as a MCP, how it works at a very high level, although we will go into more detail. But often when we talk to a customer go into more detail, guys, I understood everything. Can you help me to understand how these MCP tools that Microsoft has shipped in the context of MCP server, how it is going to help me for my use cases, right? So I just try to lay down structure for us or everyone to understand, where a couple of use cases that you can think of based on the MCP tools that Microsoft has shared inside the MCP server for Finance and Operation app. So one of the set of MCP tools, as you can see here, I highlighted in a yellow marker, which is find approved vendors, find requisitions, as well as the release purchase requisition lines. What I think about here, if you leverage these two tools from this MCP server of FNO from Microsoft, I can build a use case where I can build autonomous purchase requisition to my purchase order agents, right? So irrespective of any generative AI application that your customer using, not necessarily they need to stick to a Copilot as an app. They can have a Gemini, they can have Cloud, they can have any other generative AI application. They can easily connect to this MCP server that Microsoft has built for FNO. So these are the bunch of use cases, or rather the potential use cases that you can think of in order to, in order to use these all sort of tools that Microsoft has built. If tomorrow we get an opportunity or ability to, the extend that capability as an extension, then, the sky is the limit, right? Where we can infuse n number of methods, which is the tools inside the MCP server that Microsoft has built, and then you can do whatever you want to do and allow the other applications of AI to integrate with the financial operation app. Because back in days, used to do a lot many changes in the application if the customer is having more than 10 or 15 AI applications, right? But with the help of this MCP server, you can, easily connect any AI application with the help of MCP server, and there is no need for you to modify or customize each and every tool to connect to the dot with this, MCP server. So with that, I will take a pause now, and I will hand over mic to Sukrut, where Sukrut will take us through the next set of activity, that how to install the MCP server, what are the prerequisites are there, and how we can proceed further in terms of the concept of UDE or the concept of LCS driven, tier 2 boxes.
Yeah, thanks, Rakesh. So how do we get MCP server in our environment, right? So the prerequisite right now for getting MCP servers is, right now it's in preview and in available only in pre-release environments. So if you are familiar with how to deploy UDE, right? And if you deploy a new UDE environment, you are automatically and you're with the pre-release tag, and which we will show in our next slide, how you can deploy that. You should be able to get MCP server, or if you want to experiment MCP server tools, you can experience those in UDE environments. The basic requirements are Finance and Operations apps version is 10.0.44 or later, right? And the Copilot for finance and supply chain apps, finance app is 3049.1 or later version, and Copilot for supply chain app is 3046 or .2 or later versions, right? We'll see how we can see these solutions in Power Platform Maker Portal as well. Next slide, Rakesh. So yeah, right now, as I said, right now these are available only in pre-release environments, and I can paste a command in the chat as well for this. How can you get this in the pre-release environment after this session? But as you can see over there, when you type a location name, in location name, if you type United States first release, while deploying the unified development environment, automatically, and if you select that environment in Copilot Studio to create your agents, you should be able to see MCP servers in your tools, and we will see that in the demo now. Okay, so I'll share my screen, and yeah, before going to the demo, a few things, right? MCP server includes predefined tools. Rakesh has shown those tools in his slides, right? There are right now, because it's in preview, there are only 13 tools which are right now Microsoft is giving us out of the box, which you can utilize. But in future, there will be more tools released which we can utilize to build our scenarios, right? Each tool is backed up by custom Dataverse API, and those APIs are part of Copilot for finance and supply chain solutions in Dataverse. The tool is self-explanatory. It has a description, a schema, a definition through a Dataverse custom API, a list of input parameters, and the expected output you are going to get out of it using those tools. So with that, let me share my screen, and we will see some of these things in action. All right. So this is my Copilot Studio homepage. Is my screen visible? Okay,
Yes, sir.
so this is my Copilot Studio homepage, right, where I can create different agents. I will if I want to create agents, I will go to agents here, right, and click new agents. I have created a couple of agents over here. I will utilize those for the demonstration purpose. But before that, I will show you, how you can verify in your environments the versions which I have shown you, right? So when we go to the makers portal, make.powerapps.com, and log in to the maker portal, you have to select your UDE environment which you have deployed as a pre-release environments. Once you select that environment, you go to the solutions, and within the solutions, you can see in the all solutions, you have Copilot for Finance and Operations apps and Copilot for supply chain, Copilot in supply chain management solutions. You can see the versions over here for these apps, right? Now, let's go back to the agents where, we will go to this. I have created a couple of agents. One of them is, for example, this inventory assistant agent, right? It is a very simple plain agent where I have given some simple instructions, and to get some data through FNO. Um, Once you create your agent and configure your agent, um, you can go to the tools section over here, and click on add tool. Once you click on add tool, you'll see different options over here, right? Connectors, flow, and this is where you start seeing the model context protocol option when you have the this option available. So within once you click on model context protocol, you can see there are different MCP servers built for different applications, right? There is a Dataverse MCP server, Dynamics 365 ERP MCP server. The one we are going to focus on today is Dynamics 365 ERP MCP, which helps us to interact with the FNO data, right? There are MCP servers for sales, Box API. If you know about Box, or you are working with document attachments using separate Box solutions, there is a solution for Box MCP server as well. And there are a bunch of, even you have MCP server for Microsoft Learn Docs as well, right? So there are different Microsoft MCP servers. So I'll select Microsoft Dynamics 365 ERP MCP. Now, once you create this, once you click on that, what you need is connection, right? Similar to what you do while you build your flows or Power Apps, you need connections. So in this scenario, I have already created a connection, but if you don't have connections, you can simply, there is a create new connection where you can use different options like OAuth, service principal, or create client certificate auth. OAuth is the simple one which I'm going to use with my, email and password. That is what I have created over here. But you can create Azure Active Directory application, a service principal, and you can connect using service principal as well. So once you create connection, you can add it to the agent. Let's wait for a minute till it adds in this agent.
Yes,
Somebody
Chair.
has his
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I have a question here because the MCP server supports the role-based security because it can be the agent can be published across the team, right? And we are authenticating based on the client ID and secret ID. Probably whatever access levels has been given for the client ID and secret ID will be applicable for all the users. Or is there any way to restrict this? You got my question? Or?
No, but let's wait for your question till the end. Maybe we'll address it back.
Okay. Yeah,
Let
sure.
me. Okay. So yeah. I'm not sure what's happening over here, but I have an agent where the MCP server is added. So once you add it from there, right, you can see in the tools section over here, the Dynamics 365 ERP MCP is added, right? Once you click on this server, you can see the details about these MCP servers and different tools available within this MCP server, right? So if you can see over here, the Rakesh was showing in his slides, the find approved vendors, find requisitions, find inventory, all these different tools, out of the box tools, are available over here. These are now limited to only 13. And currently, as this is in preview, there is no plan to there is no extensibility. You cannot extend this, right? Extensibility is not enabled right now. So you have to build your scenarios using these functions. Whenever it is going to be in a public preview, or whenever Microsoft is going to release it, probably we'll get more predefined functions which we can utilize to build our scenarios, right? But for now, we have to live with that. Now, as we can see, these are self-explanatory over here, right? What this tool does. And as I was saying in my initial slides, right, these are backed up by custom data hours API behind the scenes. So if I switch to Maker portal and go inside this supply chain management solution, Copilot in supply chains management solution, within this solution, if you are familiar with solutions, there are different objects over here like tables, custom API, flows, all sorts of different things, right? So there is an option over here called as custom API, and within that custom APIs over here, if you go to the custom APIs, you can see, for example, let's take an example of transfer orders, right? So let me click on create transfer order to specify item number, and let's first take a look at the tool which says create transfer orders, create transfer order for a single item. So what it says is create a transfer order for a specified item, requires item number, form, warehouse ID, to warehouse ID, and quantity. So if I go over here and look at this, it's a same custom API which is present in this supply chain plugin, which supports this operation, right? So what it does is creates a transfer order for specified item, from and to warehouse ID, and quantity. So each operation is supported by a custom data hours API. So now let's go to this agent and try some of these tools, right? So just to get I want to get a list of approved vendors, list of all items which have approved vendors. So what we will do, we'll give a simple prompt to this agent saying, give me the list of items which has approved vendors. And what you will see over here, that this agent is going to automatically, based on the context which I have provided, it is going to automatically pick that tool, all right, and give me the results from finance and operations. As we saw in the initial slide, the way this server works is it gets the context. Now, the way MCP server works is it does not know what's going on in your ERP or your local machines or anywhere in the external systems, right? The way this large language model works, they predict next word based on the context you provide. They don't have knowledge. These models are trained on a very large data, but they don't know about what you are doing on your local documents, files, even ERP, right? So in that scenario, these tools are created with certain rules, which gets that context, pass it to the server, which in server connects with the third-party system, gets the result and provides back that results to the server, which in turn server returns it to the large language models or the models, right? So as you can see here, based on the prompt we have provided, I got a list of all the items irrespective of legal entity, right? So for example, if I look at this particular product, and if I go inside the finance and operation, it might be legal entity US001, and these are maybe connected to the Mexican legal entity MXMF0035. So it gave me all the items which has approved vendors specified to them from the ERP. Now, if I want to get the item, if I want to get a specific vendors for specific item, I can specify the item number, right? For example, give me item approved vendor list for item 1000, and it we will get the list of approved vendors for this specific item, right? Similarly, you can use different prompts to get the data from this MCP server. Now, you can have more than one MCP server, use more than one MCP servers within your agents. The way these models are going to behave is, for example, you have one operation in find or approve vendors operation in one MCP server, and you build your own MCP server. These the model is automatically going to switch to the tools between these servers and going to provide you the results. You don't have to do any action, separate actions to connect those. Those models are smart enough to switch to based on the context you have provided to find that tool or operations and get results for you. Okay, so any questions so far?
Subrat, one question. It's for external user, vendor, and within the organization. So it's kind of like a chat GPT we are using, but it's yeah. This way, the dynamics application and data can be yeah. End users can use this and have this information. So I would say this is a chat GPT version or um, for dynamics.
So,
Yeah.
Bhushan, if you think about like this, often we are using ChatGPT for our day-to-day activities, right? And often we believe always that if I put some or if I give some input to ChatGPT, it goes to the internet and bring the data from the internet, large amount of information that we have uh, um, globally. Okay, but it is not like that. The large language model, as I mentioned, and Sukru also tried to reiterate the same thing. The large language model is not, always connect to the internet. They have been designed and they have been trained large amount of data so that they can take the input and try to predict what is coming next as a next step. But in the context of finance and operation app, all our data is stored in 𝗱𝗚𝗶𝘃𝗃, right? If I put it in that way. So we cannot allow any large language model, for that matter GPT, which is supported by ChatGPT as an application. We cannot give our large amount of data, which is a financial data and the business application data that we store. It is not at all possible. And any large language model, Bhushan, for your knowledge, cannot directly connect to your local data, which is nothing but your 𝗱𝗚𝗶𝘃𝗃, right? So therefore, it is this server is building a gap between connecting the information, as simple as that.
Yeah, I think it's more user friendly and they don't need to go to the dynamics every time. And yeah, probably it's improve the productivity. All manual things that user go and do filter and connecting the dot, and that will be handled. And yeah, and they have upfront what they are looking for.
So Bhushan, I just try to simplify it. So if you look at in today's world, if you are building any new agents with the help of Copilot, right? And it is still in preview, where all your data entities of finance and operation app, whether it's a custom or standard, that you can leverage as a virtual entity in Dataverse, right? So if you go to the Copilot Studio and you want to create a new, the custom agents for your users, end users, so that they can start interacting with finance and operation app data. So you have first option. One of the option is what, that you can bring the Dataverse virtual entity as a native table inside the Copilot Studio. Okay, and then you can start interacting. Your business users can start interacting with that. But this MCP server as a tool concept, what I mentioned as a method, and then same story repeats by Sukrut, this typically comes into picture where the outside the scope of finance and operation app users, those are not actual users of finance and operation app, and there are other apps that they're using for day-to-day activity, but often they connect offline via email or via phone call to the ERP person and understand the information so that they can, punch that information in that app, whatever the use case may be. Okay, so in that context, Bhushan, this MCP server comes into picture and plays a very important role where that end user who is not a finance and operation app end user, they can leverage the MCP server inside that app. You know what I mean, right? And then
Yeah, so
all the information
Rakesh,
stored here.
it means
Yeah,
like
Bhushan.
in natural language now.
It is a
This
kind of a bridge between your AI applications or any sort of applications and bringing
Mhm.
the data of financial operation up without allow large language model to directly inject the data. Okay, it is not like that. So it is actually acting a bridge through APIs of this MCP server. What Sukrut mentioned just few minutes back.
Rakesh, can I say
So,
like
Rakesh, just one question. Sorry.
Yeah,
Like we
Bhushan.
say, like we will be using different models. So where the large language model is leveraged, because what we here see is that dynamics data coming
So
into.
you can
Yeah,
see in the
you can
agent,
see
right
here, right?
here, you can see agent model. You can see here, if I click on edit, there are different models, right? So let me go back, sorry. Yeah, so if you click on edit over here, you can default setup, what select your agent's model. There is a configuration in generative AI settings, Copilot
You can
Studio,
just click on
where
this
you can
drop down. So
see
maybe,
GPT
yeah.
4.0, GPT 4.1, GPT-5 Auto, GPT-5 Reasoning. These are your models which are available for you when you build your agents.
So, Sukrat, I just miss maybe at architecture level where this ALM is playing the role, like in this Power Platform also we used to have that agent, right? Similar integration can be built. So, what's the advantage using
Here,
ALM?
advantage is think about scenarios where, for example, let's take an example of production order, for example. Okay. Now you receive a sales order. You don't have an inventory. You have an agent which you have built. With which that agent can do everything for you. For example, agent can inquire about the inventory. You received the sales order request. You created a sales order. Now, for that sales order which you want to fulfill, the inventory does not exist for that item. You want to create a production order. You simply train your agent or give the instruction to your agent and saying, if the check the inventory for the item XYZ, which is present in the sales order. If the inventory does not exist, create a production order to manufacture that. If you are a manufacturing company, to manufacture the item. Now the production order is created, right? You can say, simply say, just estimate my production order or release my production order, right? These kind of all these end-to-end scenarios, you can just within your agent, you can use these tools, right? Use a MCP server and then just give the instruction to your agent saying what needs to happen after what, right? You sequence your steps that based on scenario, you are just simply writing in just a simple text or language, simple language, which agent model is going to understand and perform those steps for you. So if think about it, like you will have you have a production floor where different 7 or 8 people are working, right? Now you don't have manually somebody go and perform all these steps, right? Check inventory. If inventory does not exist, go and key in the production order in the shop floor for that item. Then the production will be released. It will be released for estimation, release, and then release for production, and then finally come back. Everything can happen through agent. You can just simple write it in the text language.
It's a new way of integration, intelligent integration in coming days. The pattern or automation in Dynamics is um, this agent to agent integration. Let's say we have an integration with SAP or other application. So like
I think now you spot on. Okay, that is the biggest advantage of this MCP server, right? Rather than allowing other agents and modify other apps, you can leverage the MCP servers to bridge the gap so that the tools, which is nothing but your business logic that you are trying to write here, bringing a data from FNO, and other agents can start interacting the data without changing anything at their side.
that's a really game changer and new way of working.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
So let's
But
cover some of the slides we have, and then we can take more questions, right?
yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
So let me, 1 second. Let me go back to the presentation and cover a few slides we have, and then we'll open it for questions and answers. Okay. So as you have seen, the Microsoft has provided their own MCP server with predefined set of tools, right? Right now only 13 available. In future we might get more, but you can build your own MCP server as well, right? And who can build this which role can build this is nothing but the developers, right? And this is one of the reasons why AI uh, won't replace developers yet, right? Because to build an MCP server you need a developer, right? Now which languages you can use to build MCP server, right? Whoever has a basic understanding of TypeScript or JavaScript or Python, right? These languages you can build the MCP server using these, right? Now the reason why we are mentioning this over here is because being a X++ developers or technical people who has X++ background, they don't want to it's our normal behavior, human behavior, right? We don't want to go out of our comfort zone and try something else, right? But if you want to um, survive in the world of AI, definitely you need to start learning new things. So most of the people, they know TypeScript, JavaScript, Python, but there is X++ community exists, who may not be aware about these things, right? So if you are aware about TypeScript, JavaScript, you have a plus where you can go and take the examples which are available on the GitHub, which we will share in the coming slides, and we'll paste those links in the chat as well. You can clone those repos and start building your own MCP server, right? For the people who don't have familiarity with these languages, you can start learning TypeScript or JavaScript, right? And JavaScript are both are same. Just TypeScript is just a superior version of JavaScript, right? With more powerful features. You can start learning it, and then you can start, experimenting with building MCP server. So if you have a familiarity with Node.js or Node package manager commands, npm commands, you to how to initialize project, install packages and run script using Node and npm, you have a plus point where you can start building this MCP server, and basic knowledge about REST API and HTTP concept, because the way MCP server works, it is um, it is basically similar to how we are calling the REST APIs or HTTP concept. So definitely you would be calling some APIs from within this MCP server codes to connect to the third-party applications where you want to connect with, right? So to build your own MCP server, there are some prerequisites, right? You need to set up the before setting up your TypeScript projects or JavaScript projects, you need to have a Node.js version 16 or higher installed, then Node Package Manager familiarity. If you are building it for Dynamics 365, which we are focusing on today, or looked at today with the out-of-the-box MCP server, then you need a Dynamics 365 FNO instance or a Dataverse instance if you are going to create operations for or tools for Dataverse. Then you need a Dynamics 365 instance. It can be FNO or Dataverse, and then Azure Active Directory application to configure and configure for Dynamics 365 API access, right? Similar to what we do in Azure Active Directory when we perform any integrations, we create Azure client ID and secret. You need an Azure Active Directory application service principal to connect with Finance and Operations or Dataverse instance, right? High level steps, to build this MCP server. The examples, let me go back to my slide, to my screen here, and you can see over here, 1 second, let me close this. You can see over here, this is the repository which I was referring to, and let me paste this link in the chat as well. This is what I was showing in the slide. You can clone this repository from GitHub, and after there are steps mentioned over here, basically how you can prerequisites, configuration steps, cloning the repository. If you have knowledge about GitHub, right, you can clone this repository, which will give you the environment file where you can have your client ID, client secret, tenant ID, and D365 URL specified. If you want to connect to FNO instance, here the example is given for the Dataverse instance, but if you have FNO instance, similarly, you can specify FNO instance, and then build this command, build this project. And then once you build this project, if you are familiar with TypeScript project structure, all the code is in SRC folder, right? So if you go to here, the main.TypeScript file, this main.ts file, you can see, the actual code over here, which is written for the MCP server, right? So you can utilize this code. I'll show you quick example over here. For example, if you look at this code over here, if I want to, this is the function, right? There are similar to what we have in FNO on tables or on classes, we have functions, right? So similarly, we have async function or async function over here, which accepts these parameters, right? And then it calls this API request, right? You can see here making the API request where API data, this is how you query data in Dataverse, right? From the system users tables, and passing the data user ID, which is which is maybe provided as a context through the host application, right, or client application through chat window, and then returns the result, returns the data, which returns the data based on this user details variable here. So if you look at my slides over here, let me go back to the slides quickly. So if you look at my slide over here, you can look at the example of adding a tool to get vendor groups, for example, a custom tool to add a vendor groups, right? So once you have your MCP server, your repository built, cloned, you can even write your own function to get whatever operation or whatever tool you want to build. The example given is simple vendor groups. You can see here, it's simple like what we do as a OData query, right? Just written in a different syntax over here. For example, if you see here, to get vendor groups, this is my tool, vendor get vendor groups, retrieves a list of all vendor groups, right? So the query is simply a cross-company query where we have Dynamics 365 URL/data/vendor groups. So this is nothing but the calling vendor groups entity, and if cross-company parameter is if we want to go across all the company, then just provide cross-company and provide the get those vendor groups from all the companies, right? And then make the API call for this URL .toString. So basically, if you see within this MCP tool, it is a predefined set of tools which are querying through either a OData, or you can maybe if you have custom service, and that's why we said you need to have a knowledge about how to call REST APIs, right? You can have custom service or your REST service, which you can call through this MCP server code, right, which is in TypeScript, and then you can build your own tools as well. Now, the advantage you are going to get out of it is as many as tools available, or based on your scenario, you can build your tools, make those availables in your agent. And now you just have to configure your agent through your instructions, proper instructions or steps, and then you can build your scenarios. Now, it's not only about MCP server. Within your agent, you can have within tools, you can have virtual entities or different knowledge sources, MCP server, combination of everything to build your agent. And these are just not, the steps again, which to build your once you have project and your code ready to build, compile the MCP server, and finally the testing of this MCP server. Whenever you build it on your local machine, how you can test your MCP server. We are exploring this as well. So we are in the process of exploring or building our own MCP server. So whenever we get to it, we'll have maybe another session where we can share, more details about how you can build this. With that, I will open it up for questions, and I will paste these links in the chat as well
So
for the references. Oh, you already shared?
I already shared. Yeah.
Great.
I think there is one question from Manikanda. Yeah, go ahead, Manikanda.
Yeah. Hi, Rakesh and Raghu. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing this information. It's very useful. So as per the example you have provided, so can I take it MCP is to share the data between the custom application and the custom agent? Can I take it like that? Yes. And
Yes.
if it is sharing the data, we have database entity, virtual entity you have already mentioned, and we already have BYOD, and many other functionalities are already there to share the data. What advantages we are going to have it by using MCP? So why MCP is having
I think you are mixing two things together. Okay, so if you're trying to bring the data concept of BYOD, which is nothing but bring your own database, that is predominantly for replicating the transaction data of FNO to the dedicated database of Azure SQL for a reporting purpose, right? The one of the core aspect that I described in the beginning of the call for the MCP server is allowing your any other AI applications, for that matter, any agents. Does not mean that you build your agents using the Microsoft Copilot Studio. You can use Gemini, you can use a ChatGPT, any other AI applications will allow to read the data that you have stored in AXDB, right? So
yeah. MCP server is not specific to MCP server is not specific for FNO, right? Once you build that MCP server, it can be utilized by any of the models, right? Like it can be, it's not only about Copilot. It can be, you can add it as tool in Claude. You can use it within Gemini right?
As well.
Yeah, so it's not about MCP server is reutilized. It's once you build, it's not specific to any specific model.
Got it. Okay. And currently, it has only read operation. I mean, you can write. What about write? Can just sharing the data? It will have only read operation. Is it?
No, you can write as well, right? So if you want to create any orders, you can you can just provide context,
pass
right?
the context, pass the instructions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we saw, right, within the tools, you have a tool to create transfer order as well. Now, to create a transfer order, what do you need? You need from warehouse to warehouse, right? And items and quantity, right? So as long as you are providing those parameters, so if you ask your agent to create a transfer order, and if you have a tool added, a standard MCP added, it will automatically switch to that tool and ask you, okay, if you want to create transfer order, provide me the context, right? That means provide me these parameters, provide me from warehouse, provide me to warehouse, quantity and item.
Okay.
And then it is going to perform the right operation as well to create the transfer order.
Okay. Got
Any
it.
more question? I think we already on top of the hour. We will take one or two questions more, if any. Else we'll conclude for now until our next session. I think it looks like there is no more question. I think we can take a pause. Thank you very much, 𝗱𝗲𝗃𝗃𝗃 and entire team to join. Really appreciate your time, especially on Saturday at 2 afternoon IST time. And thank you, Alper, for joining today.
Thank you everyone
Thank you
for
very
joining.
much. Bye.
Thank you, Rakesh, Shukrat, everyone. Thank you.